two-time major champ Stacy Lewis. We appreciate your time. Your three captains' picks are.
Good morning, guys. My three captains' picks are Allie Ewing, Cheyenne Knight, and Angel Yin.
Some names that LPGA fans are quite familiar with, and here you see the resumes. Allie Ewing, of course, she actually was named to the team in 2019 to replace a then-injured Stacy Lewis. You see Cheyenne Knight makes her Solheim Cup debut. She won the 2012 KPMG Stacy Lewis Jr. Girls Open. And Angel Yin, 2 top 10s in majors this year. 3-2-1 across 2 Solheim Cups in 2017 and 2019. So, Stacy, how would you describe this process of putting this team together?
It was relatively stress-free, to be honest. I all along, you know, these girls they've all played their way onto the team. You know, it wasn't really too difficult for me, to be honest, and it got easier yesterday when Andrea went out there with a very, very clutch performance and finished 13th and jumped up into the points list. And my decisions were basically done because, you know, these 3 that I announced today, they were on my list prior, you know, for the last month or so. You know, I wanted them there. And I think it's the preparation. We've been very prepared behind the scenes with our stats and understanding their games that nothing's really been a surprise the last few weeks.
Stacey, going back to these 3 picks, I'm curious what specifically registered with each of these 3 women. Is it a case of the statistics that you mentioned? Is it balancing out skill sets? Is it personality fits in the team room? What were the metrics that mattered most to you in making this decision?
Yeah, so for each one, it was a little bit different. Allie, you know, I really wanted a veteran voice, a calming voice, and she's really solid. Tee to green, very solid, very consistent, can literally pair up with anybody. We've looked at all of our pairing stuff, and she's one that could play with almost anybody on the team. And then you go to Angel. Obviously, her play in majors was kind of caught my eye. She finished top 30 in every major this year. Her play on Bermuda grass also caught my eye there, and then her length. And then Cheyenne, just her overall play, just kind of like Allie, very consistent tee to green. She's very good around the greens. I think she went, 7 straight top 20 finishes early in the year and kind of capped it off with a win. So, again, it's good play more than anything, but then they individually have things that have helped us kind of fill up some spots on the team.
Stacy, speaking of numbers and math, I couldn't help but notice how many 20-somethings you have on this team. 25-year-olds, there are 5 of them. You have a couple of 26-year-olds as well. You have a lot of native Californians on this team. I'm talking about players like Lilia Vu, Allison Corpuz, Angel Yin, Rose Zhang. A lot of these players, Stacy, as you knew, they grew up together competing in the AJGA. How much flexibility does that give you that these players really have known each other for such a long time?
Yeah, it's going to be really helpful. I mean, they, like you said, they've played Curtis Cups, they've played AJGA events together. You know, we've got 5 rookies, but they're not rookies. I mean, they've played a lot of LPGA Tour golf. I mean, 2 of our rookies have won major championships this year. So I don't really classify them as rookies anymore in my head. But yeah, we were joking that Allie's, I think, now the oldest one on the team. So we're inexperienced as far as maybe the Solheim Cup itself looks, but we're not inexperienced in experience itself. And you know, I like the youth. I think it's going to bring a great element to the team room. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm just excited to see how they handle the moment.
Rose Zhang and Allison Corpuz had a pretty good record in Walker Cup as well. Stacey, do you already have some pairings in your mind that you're going to send out? Would you care to share any of them in case Suzanne Pedersen's watching today?
I can't share any pairings yet, but yes, I did notice their Curtis Cup record. They did go undefeated there. So, yeah, I mean, we have looked back at past Solheim Cups, past Curtis Cups, who's paired well together. But yeah, there's several pairings that are kind of set in stone already in my head. But we were kind of unsure of that last spot with Andrea yesterday. So now that we know Andrea's in there, we can dive in a little bit more.
Stacy, you said this was a pretty stress-free process. I look at Allison Lee, 6 top 20s this season. She has Solheim Cup experience. Marina Alex as well. She has Solheim Cup experience from 2019. How difficult was it to leave Allison Lee and Marina Alex off this team?
It was tough. That honestly has been the hardest part. That was the hardest part of my job was telling them no yesterday. And just to see that disappointment on their faces. A couple of them knew it. They knew they hadn't played well enough in their heads. And but yeah, it was hard. And just tried to talk to them about using it as motivation going forward. We got another Solheim Cup coming up in a year. And, just to try to motivate them more than anything. But it was the end of the day yesterday was tough for me. And, but, I think you're probably going to see both of them on another Solheim Cup before their careers are done.
Stacey, the qualification process for the Solheim Cup, it's quite a long process, and people play well at different stages of it. Lexi Thompson's game has been very off by her standards over the last couple of months. Are you in any way concerned about Lexi's form as you head to Spain, or are you hoping that this Solheim Cup will just kind of light a fire in her again?
To be honest, I think the Solheim Cup will light a fire in Lexi. I think she, she's aware of the struggles, but I think the best part about Lexi right now is how well she has handled the poor play. She continues to work hard. She continues to go home and work on it. There's no give up in Lexi, and that's what we need on this team. And every one of her teammates know that Lexi is going to grind it out. She is going to keep trying. There's literally no quit in her. And I think everybody on this team wants her there. And that's the most important thing. She's going to have a different role. We're going to be looking for her more behind the scenes of leading the team, of stepping up and, helping these rookies get to where they need to be on time and making sure they understand what's happening. So her role is just going to be different. And I think she's okay with that. And hopefully it helps, take some pressure off of her game too.
Stacy, as you know, one of your predecessors, Julie Inkster, was less about the decals and pomp and circumstance and more about bringing your hard hat. How do you balance the seriousness of trying to win versus having fun as well?
Yeah, I mean, number one, this thing is about fun. That's been my goal for this team is I want them to leave Spain having the best week of their lives. I want them to have fun. I want them to be themselves. I think personalities and getting to be yourself can kind of be lost sometimes in these team environments. And I think it's important. So we're trying to add some flexibility to practice. We're trying to make their routines and their weeks more like normal weeks on tour. But I think this thing it's about enjoying it. The golf is hard. It's stressful. And I know the personalities of these girls and the way they've been towards me, I know they're going to work hard. I know they're not going to give up. And so I'm not worried about that at all.
Every time the U.S. team travels overseas, whether it's Solheim Cup or in Ryder Cup, Stacey, we hear a lot about how the course is going to be set up by the Europeans to advantage their particular style of play. What are you expecting the test to be in Spain? And is there any kind of reconnaissance that the team is going to be able to get in before the actual matches?
Yeah, so we, unlike the Ryder Cup, we don't have as much say over course setup like the guys do. But, the golf course itself is actually fairly short. It's very hilly, windy, can be windy. When I was there last year, it was not windy at all. So who knows what we'll see week of. But it can be windy at times. And so it's more, I'm going to give those things to my team and have them be preparing at home, preparing for playing in the wind, preparing for uneven lies. And then we're going to use these next 2 weeks of tournaments to get the right people playing together in practice rounds that maybe haven't before, and just to get the girls thinking about playing different golf balls, things like that, so we can be prepared when we get on that plane.
Stacy, your counterpart, Suzanne Pedersen, last week said this was Europe's best team ever. I think that was a bogey. Can you use that in some form or fashion as motivation for your team?
Well, she might not be wrong. Let's just say that. I mean, the European team is stacked. I mean, they're top, that core six that they have is as good as it's ever been. And they have the passion, they have the fire, they have the momentum right now in the Solheim Cup. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think this team's going to need any motivation. I think we've lost the last two, and I think that's motivation enough in itself. And but yeah, I mean, Europe's strong, and I don't know what it looks like on paper with rankings and all that stuff. And frankly, I don't care. But you know, our team's a little bit of the underdog. We got 5 rookies going overseas, and they got to go prove themselves.
Stacey, you mentioned how difficult it was to make some of those calls in the last 24 hours to players who weren't actually going to make your team. But how much changed in terms of what you felt your team looked like, say, before the last week's tournament in Canada versus what you end up with this morning? Was there much shape-shifting going on?
No, to be honest. Really, in my head, the team hasn't really changed the last probably month and a half. Just with when you really dive into stats and know the numbers, you know when good golf is coming, you know who is playing well. So nothing's a surprise. Megan last week was not a surprise. You could see it coming. So no, I mean, we've really been set on kind of 13, 14 for a while now. And, you know, my list throughout the last year and a half has gotten a lot smaller. Now, does the team look a lot different from a year ago? Absolutely. Rose jumping in there, Jess being injured. You know, there's definitely been some shuffling over the last year, but not within the last month.
I know the Stacy Lewis, the player, winning in the California desert, stacking it on 17 and 18 at the old course. Who is Stacy Lewis, the captain?
Stacy Lewis, the captain, is probably the most over-prepared and organized person you've ever seen. And just trying to check all the boxes so that when we get to Spain, we can have fun and we can let loose and relax. And you're probably going to see a lot more smiles, a lot looser Stacy as a captain than as a player, for sure.
Well, we appreciate the time. Best of luck. Save that voice. You might need it over all those chants of ole, ole, ole. And we'll speak to you soon. Thanks so much, Captain.
Awesome. Sounds great. Thanks, guys.